Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room with myself, Lewis. And today, the special guests keep on coming. We've got another exciting one, someone who, in his own admission, is considered gully, according to Twitter. He's a man who loves a ploughman sandwich. He's a huge Tottenham fan and a big, big character on the YouTube scene. Flav Bateman. Flav, thank you so much for coming on to the channel. Really is appreciated. How are you doing today?
Yeah, man, that was an amazing intro. I do love a cheese ploughman sandwich. It is the goat sandwich. I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm all right. We had a long day yesterday. I do another podcast called James and Flav for now, and we did a live show in a pub in Old Street, which was an interesting experience and one that sort of takes it out of you. But yeah, I'm back home. I live out in Wiltshire in the middle of nowhere. So I got home at about 1 o'clock last night. So I'm a little bit weary, but life's good. All good.
Really appreciate it coming on after that. And like Flav said there, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, please go check out the James and Flav for Now podcast. It really is entertaining. There was a recent episode they did where they took in fan questions, answered all them, and it was really, really entertaining. And if you haven't checked them out already, go check out The Fighting Cock. It's arguably the biggest Tottenham fan channel on YouTube. Absolutely massive. The last episode about King Kulusevski, really, really enjoyable, especially if you want to know how to beat a spicy curry. Really entertaining, so please go check that out and give it a subscribe.
Weirdly, we do have like a number, not a huge amount, but we've got a number of listeners from Liverpool, and I don't know why. I don't know what it is, because obviously our own. There's been, I wouldn't say there's a rivalry between Tottenham and Liverpool, but there's been moments of there've been flashpoints over the last 10 years or so. But for whatever reason, Liverpool fans seem to listen to it and stick with it for some reason. I can't quite put my finger on it, but
it's entertaining. I mean, from my perspective, I quite enjoy hearing about other clubs. Like, I think if you've sort of listened to only things about your team, there's an oversaturation about particular topics. Like, I'm tired of hearing that we need a number 6. I'm tired of hearing about Joel Matip's injury. I like to it's like a palate cleanser listening to other clubs. I mean, do you feel the same at all in that regard? Like, will you listen to things? Because obviously I know you communicate with other channels. So
yeah, I mean, we do a lot of this. We do like obviously we play a game. I don't know what I'm saying here. We play a game a week like everybody. But we are obviously, as a part of our Patreon offering, and generally people want to do opposition previews. So you get asked to do a lot of that, and it's always interesting talking to people from other football clubs. I wouldn't go out of my way to go and listen to Norwich podcast or anything like that. I mean, I kind of most of my week is filled with talking about football anyway. So if I get downtime, it tends not to be anything to do with football at all. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear what other people think about Spurs, much more than talking to Spurs fans about Spurs, to be honest.
I mean, I understand that. It's a sort of an unbiased perspective, so to speak. And we've seen you appear on the debate on the club. The last episode you did a few weeks ago was really, really enjoyable. No one's seen that. Go check that out. And you talked about a few bits. And one thing that you mentioned is Postecoglou, the way he's come in. And you said that developing an identity is more important than just getting results for the sake of it. What is Tottenham's identity? Like, Liverpool have the history, so to speak. City have the recent success. You know, they were the plucky underdogs at the beginning. How would you describe Tottenham to someone who's never seen them before?
Okay, historically, Tottenham are the team that, or one of the teams that played free-flowing, attacking football beyond anything else, before anything else. And that essentially comes from Bill Nicholson and Arthur Rowe before him, the guy we're going way back, who were playing a brand of football that people hadn't seen before, and it was very front foot attacking football. Not honestly in possession, not too dissimilar to what Postecoglou is doing at Spurs, where we would have two backs, full backs that would bomb forward, and then you'd end up with 5 forwards as we do. So it's interesting that we've come sort of full circle. That the way we're playing now isn't dissimilar to what we used to do previously. And I think if Spurs fans are talking in the most fondest way with our most rose-tinted glasses, Tottenham Hotspur are a team that if we're not winning, then we need to be playing well. And even when it's kind of almost pointless winning unless you do it playing well. Some of the frustrations that Spurs fans have had over the last 4 or 5 years with Jose Mourinho and Nuno and Conte was that we'd abandoned the principles of the football club to win. And the problem with doing that, which is fine, right? The problem with doing that is if you don't win, what are you left with? Very little. You're just left with what is fundamentally 11 men on a football pitch that are doing things that you're not used to and you don't necessarily want them to do and not behaving and playing in the way that you've become accustomed to through years and years of following your football club and listening to stories from your granddad and your dad and whoever else might have taken you to Spurs when you was a kid. This is the way we play. I remember this player. Everybody does it. My dad used to bang on about Hoddle over and over again. He never talks about Hoddle's positional play or his what we won while he was there. He talks about the what he did with the ball and how he could do things that other players couldn't. And it was those stories that you grew up on. So to abandon that in pursuit of success and for that success not only to not come but get nowhere near really was a massive issue for Spurs fans. So to go back to Postecoglou now is a return to what Tottenham are, which is a team that wants to attack and control the game and go for the jugular and play front foot flowing football. Postecoglou is the embodiment of that.
It's a really in-depth analysis on it because a lot of people just say, well, the old style was boring. This one's great because it's fun to watch. But to link it to the club's identity is quite an important thing. And I've made the comparison to Postecoglou that he's very similar to when Klopp came into Liverpool at the beginning. He was trying to take the identity from the drab, poor football of Roy Hodgson and Brendan Rodgers and turn it into his own identity. And it was a case of if we were going to go down, we were going down swinging. Is that sort of idea with Postecoglou at the minute? We saw it against City and Chelsea.
Yeah, it's to use a cliche is would you rather die on your knees or die on your feet? It's like we can't. It was just so insipid and so pragmatic that there was nothing inspiring about our football previously. The same feelings that you had about Klopp when he started, and I remember specifically a 2-2 draw at West Brom where Klopp took his Liverpool side to the Kop to celebrate this draw at West Brom, and everyone's going, "What are you celebrating a draw?" The draw wasn't the point. The point was there was you probably come from behind in that game or something like that. I can't remember what happened, but there was the point was
96th minute.
You got an equaliser in 96th minute.
Yeah,
right, okay, so it just showed a demonstration of togetherness, right? And that's what he was trying to demonstrate, that as one in this moment, Liverpool, and going forward, Liverpool are going to be one club together. And Liverpool, to be fair, are better at that than most clubs are. So while we haven't had that moment, we've had that in terms of him sort of, physically taking the players to the fans. There has been several moments where the togetherness at the football club is so much more palpable or more tangible than it has been previously. Now that Kane has moved on, we've had new leaders come into the team and showed a togetherness that we haven't had for years. Postecoglou obviously has had a massive part of that, but he's really, in terms of leading the teams on the pitch, it's really down to those 3 captains that we've got at the moment. Well, it's like a captain's team. It's like 2 vice captains and Sonny, who's the club captain, and they've really sort of stepped up to the plate, and it's been a wonderful thing. It feels much more like a wholesome football club where everyone's pulling in the same direction, whereas previously it was the opposite of that.
And you talked there on there's multiple captains in this team. I mean, I know you won't like the comparison, but Arsenal said that a few seasons ago, and there's 5-6 captains in the team, and it was sort of scoffed at by a lot of fans. But this season, after the loss of Kane, how impressed have you been in that step up in leadership from the other players around them?
Yeah, I've been surprised. I mean, I was surprised when Maddison was made vice captain. It didn't make a great deal of sense because he's just new to the club. He was made vice captain within weeks of being there. Heung-min Son has led his country through the duration of his career. So there was never any surprise there that he would step up to the plate. And then Romero, who we've seen in recent weeks, can be a bit of a tempestuous character who is prone to a red card or a booking. He's another part of it. And a crucial aspect to that is Heung-min Son, because while Harry Kane led by example, he didn't necessarily lead with character. Like, I'm loath to criticize him because of all the incredible stuff he'd done, and he probably is the best player, or certainly the best goal scorer, striker that I'll ever see with my own eyes. And by virtue of his abilities on the pitch, then it made sense that he was never club captain. Actually, he was always vice captain to Hugo Lloris. But in Lloris's absence, he captained the side last season, and it was very much, like I said, what he was able to do with the ball rather than how he was leading. Whereas Son isn't Harry Kane as a footballer, but he is in terms of his character and his willingness to develop or understand the difficulties of some of the players are going through, like Richarlison when he's on a poor run of form, or Van der Ven when he scored his goal against Luton. Whatever it is, he makes sure that the player who deserves the plaudits gets pushed towards the front of the pack. And he does tiny little things that might not mean much to anybody else, but to us it means a lot. Like they have the huddle right next to the away support now, and there's an interaction with the fan base that Harry Kane never really give. Like that, Harry Kane's brilliant at straight batting interview answers. Never really says anything that really gets you going. But his football did the speaking for most of it, the talking. The irony of that, the only time he actually said anything out of character was that interview with Gary Neville where he said, he wants to go to Manchester City pretty much. So, yeah, look, I mean, Harry Kane is loved for his ability, but I don't think, I think if you spoke to any Spurs fan, most Spurs fans, like who's the better player? Harry Kane, hands down. But who do you have a greater affection for? It'd be Heung-min Son, in my opinion. And the great example of that is when Harry Kane was trying to leave the football club, Heung-min Son signed a new contract it wasn't even a hesitation, and that shows you a lot because we didn't win with Harry Kane, and we didn't win with Son, but we had one player who wants to play for us and one player who wanted out. And whether or not you can intellectualize the reasons why he wants to leave, which you can understand it. It's when it comes down to it, he said, "You're not good enough for us." So that's fine. That means that I don't have to love you.
Well, I remember you saying on the club once that it was a debate you were having with Miles, I think it was, and he was saying, "Look, Kane, Henry's better than Kane." You said, "No, Kane's better than Henry." And then you made the statement saying, I don't care. I could care less what Kane does. He's left the club. I still respect him for everything he's done, but, he's not here now." That's a mindset that it's so, what's the right word? It's respectable, because when we lost Suarez back to like 10 years ago, there was a panic and a turmoil and we never really got over it. Whereas this season, you seem to have just flew past it. And when I was on the narrative with James Alcott, he asked me, can you win a league title with Nunez? So I want to ask you a similar sort of question. Can you get top four with Richarlison as your main striker?
No. If the only option is Richarlison as our number 9 and we can't swap him out, I would worry about our chances. Can we get Richarlison? If Richarlison doesn't play, like if we're fit, everyone's fit, then Richarlison doesn't get in the side. So I would say that if we had to play him, we'd be at a disadvantage compared to what our other options are in the squad. Look, I mean, as we record, the last 2 games he scored 3 goals in, right? So you think, well, maybe things have changed. He has come back from an injury to his groin, which he had to go for surgery for. So he missed a month for that, and he's come back, and he does look sharper. I think there's still limitations to his game, which would suggest that we overpaid for him, and that perhaps he isn't the player that is going to take us to top 4. Is less of like I'm talking like, I mean, Spurs fans, and this might sound crazy to you, but I think there's a general underlying agreement at Tottenham that if we had everyone fit, then we would 100% still be in the title race. We are, as of last Friday, we were 4 points off Arsenal. I know the weekends, it was before everyone had played, so it doesn't really matter. But we're not out of touch, and we are completely decimated. We haven't had Van der Ven and Maddison since November. They've missed like 7 or 8 games. We've had to play, before Romero come back, two games, one of which was against Manchester City with 4 fullbacks as our centre back. So everybody's got injuries. It's a weird one this season where a lot of big clubs are losing players, and I appreciate that. But I just think that we're so much better than, like, people are forgetting how good we were at the start of the season and looking at that run of poor results, not poor performances, poor results, and just thinking, oh, well, no, actually, we don't have to worry about Spurs, which is good because you kind of fly under the radar. But so it was a difficult question to answer because it's like, well, Richarlison's not. I wouldn't be able to rely on Richarlison, I don't think, and I don't think it's a mental statement to score 15, 20 league goals in the season, which you kind of need from your forward players if you're going to finish in the top 4. So that was what my hesitation was. So I think regardless of what happens, Tottenham will finish in the top 4 this season. And I think that's down to Postecoglou. Unless we don't recover from this injury crisis we're in, and we just consistently are picking up injuries, then there's nothing you can do about that. And it's just one of them things. But we're so much better than 5th place where we are. I think we're in 5th. We're so much better than that. And I think that will play out towards the end of the season.
Now, I like to think I'm a very sort of not neutral fan, because obviously there's going to be a bit of Liverpool bias, but I can sympathise with the fact that, Newcastle have injuries, everyone goes on about it. Man United have injuries, everyone goes on about it. Everyone just looks at the Tottenham injuries and just goes, well, typical Tottenham this. And if you look at the players like you mentioned that you've lost in the past, Maddison's out, Romero keeps getting banned, Van der Ven's out, like it would affect any team. So
yeah, we've now lost Basuma for effectively 8 games.
Yeah. So Basuma's out and he's been an integral part. And we've heard Postecoglou say that in January he's looking to bring in a centre-back. Now, is a centre-back the priority given the injuries? If you had your fully fit squad, would he have been focusing on a different part of the pitch, you think, possibly?
No, 100% a centre-back is the issue. The problem, you don't spend... I mean, in order to buy players that are useful to Tottenham, it costs a lot of money, or you can have look at loan options with an obligation to buy, things like that. So you have to be absolutely sure that these players are going to be able to come in and be good enough for Spurs. And if that is the case, and any club in the top 6, this is the fact, that you have to spend significant money to get them through the door. If you're going to do that, you can't be buying players reactive to injuries, because injuries are temporary. So you're buying a permanent solution to a temporary issue. It's a temporary. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's basically if you say you're buying Maddison's out, right, and he's coming back in early Feb or mid January, you don't then, as soon as a window open, try and find the number 10, because the problem is solved in 2 or 3 weeks. The overarching issue in our squad, the biggest issue, is the lack of depth at centre back. So you've got Van der Ven and you've got Romero, and then after that, you've got no backup to Romero at all, apart from Emerson Royale and Eric Dyer, who's not fit for purpose in this system at all. He can't play it. So, he's just not fast enough, unfortunately, or has the turning arc of a battleship. So he's no good, and they're looking to get him out the door. You've got Emerson Royale, who is not a centre-back. He's a wing-back or a right-back. And then you've got Van der Ven, and the backup would be Ben Davies. Now, Ben Davies has done brilliantly when he's come in for a full-back, or he's sometimes played in the left of a back 3. For him to be able to do that in a back 4 in the way that Postecoglou wants to play football is not a massive ask of him, and he's really steps up to the plate. But we need backup, a specialist backup, as Postecoglou said, to Van der Ven and Romero. And that was evident way before any of these injuries took place. And it's something that needs to be sorted out. But yeah, he's been super unlucky, and you had Perisic out for the season after playing a couple of games. He had an ACL. Bentancur was out for 9 months, come back, played 1 game challenge from Matty Cash, completely new injury, out for 2 months. You lost Van der Ven, Maddison, Adogie's been suspended loads. We've got Brennan Johnson, who's got a head injury. Hopefully he'll be back though. Manos Solomon, who we bought in the summer, played a few games, was injured for 3 months. So it's with a squad that was already quite light because it's in transition. We can't cope with these injuries, and the fact we're still in touching distance of the top is significant, because when these players come back and if they stay fit, we're going to be a force again, I think.
And I mean, so we'll move on soon, but is the injuries, is it due to the players going from this slow, methodical build-up of Conte and Mourinho to suddenly this quick, intense, really strong style of football under Postecoglou? Is it, do you just think physically they weren't able to keep up with the demands, or is it just pure unlucky, these injuries just happen from time to time?
I think the suspensions might be much more to do with the change in pace and what Postecoglou's asking of them. He asked them to be aggressive. He asked them to rush to the tackle, be first to it, and with that comes, fouling. And sometimes when you're fouling, you'll end up injuring players or going over the top. Or as we saw with Basuma, if you look at it in slow-mo, he's essentially connected with him, studs up, but no knee, red card all day for sure. But when you see it in real time, he's trying to get to the ball and the ball's, he's just not got there and the player's leg is there. What he's been asked of Basuma is so high-paced and obviously you don't have time to think, that the risk is that you'll get sent off. Now, like I said, there's no debate in the red card. It was 100%. He had to go, and as soon as you saw it, he's like, "Oh, well, there's nothing to say there. He's gone." But Ange wants him to play a certain way, and it comes with a risk of cards, especially red ones. So there's that, and he's sending them onto the pitch amped up, like from the beginning. They're at the game and they want to influence it and try and score. So they're going onto that pitch amped up, which is part of the problem at Chelsea, I think. I think they were too amped. The other ones, not really. I mean, Van der Ven, when he was at Wolfsburg, his stats, in terms of his sprint stats, were dissimilar to what they've been at Spurs this season. He pulled up a hamstring in that game against Chelsea, and I don't know if you watched that, but it was stop-start. There was something like 14, 15 minutes of VAR checks in the first half. And like muscle injuries generally come from cooling down, stopping and starting, which is why you see NFL players on bikes on the side of the pitch. They just got to keep their hamstrings, warm and loose, and to ensure they're not risk at pulling them. And Van der Ven, given his play style, having to stand around, I think that probably, I mean, who knows, but it looks like. It looks like that played into it. I'm going for a very long-winded way of answering is that I think we've been unlucky with injuries rather than it being down to Ange's style. Like Bentancur was a tackle, nothing to do with anything. Manon was a knee injury. So Brennan Johnson's banged his head. It's not really ACL again. Perisic, nothing to do with it really. So I wouldn't. And James Maddison got a kick on the foot as well, which damaged his foot. So no, the answer is no. I don't think.
Mate, you can go as in depth as you want on this. If you want to go on, you go on by all means. I want to take it away then from, keep it similar to the football, but go back a little bit. I was watching your episode with James Alcock, The Process, which was like 5 years ago. It was a good while ago.
Yeah, that was a long while.
And you speak about how you got into this scene, into the YouTube scene and football, and you started off at Ball Street and made the transition into full-time content creation. How daunting was that experience to do it full-time after being from a job to then going off on your own?
All right, okay. I mean, just so it's like completely accurate. I started the Fighting Cock podcast in 2011. Then it's because of that podcast I ended up getting, I don't know, what would you call it, poached, or basically Ball Street offered me a job because of the podcast. We was at the what we used to be FBAs, and that's the FCAs, I think. And I met the guy who ran the company, Matt Wilson, who was there making content, and we had a chat, and ended up me getting a job in Ball Street, basically. So I learned a lot at Ball Street about business and about how content can be made to how you monetize it, but also how to look at it as a business rather than just a hobby. And for that, I learned so much because it's essentially it was a company that was it was if it wasn't making money, then no one got paid, kind of thing. So that was the driving force behind it. Whereas I walked into Ball Street very ideological, like there shouldn't be money in football content. It should be very pure, and I was quite idealistic, and it was fucking nonsense, to be honest. But anyway, I learned a lot about how the business runs, how football media runs, and the value of audience and stuff like that. So anyway, when I got to the point where I thought, right, well, I need to leave Ball Street, and I need to see if I can make this a business in itself. Was terrifying, actually, because my now wife, we'd been together for 4 years, and she lived in another part of the country in Wiltshire, and I lived in London, and we'd see each other at the weekend. So that was a big part in me making the jump. And not only did I have to make this business work, but I had to be with her as well, right? Because if you want a relationship to work, you need to spend time with each other. So where she lives, there's no business, there's no industry here, right? There is pubs, and there is B&Bs and hotels and fucking old ladies' hairdressers. That's it, right? There's nothing here. Unless you're a farmer or own a pub, you can't make money where it is. So I was thinking about how can I turn the Fighting Cock and other things I was doing with Jim into a way of earning, not to earn my wage that I was earning at Ball Street, but just to cover, just about how to contribute, just so that we weren't broke, basically. And there's it was a 30. How old was I then? I was about 38, and with no, income really, and no way of making it work other than two things. I had a contract with FansBet, which is can I swear on this? No.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
No. Is it YouTube?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I won't swear because it will demonetize it, I think. Let me see. They are a shoddy little outfit, which shouldn't be touched with a barge pole, and have since disbanded, although they do tweet every now and then, which is weird. Anyway, so they were in a situation where or we had an agreement that they were going to pay me a fee each month to sponsor the podcast. And I had that in place. I had that money, and I'm thinking, well, look, it's about half of what I was getting paid in terms of my salary, but it's something. I also had Acast, so they put adverts on in between and at the end of the podcast, and they were paying roughly around 600, 700 quid a month. So those two things together, right, I kind of could live off that. So I thought I had a safety blanket. Within 2 months, FansBet went tits up, and Acast changed their algorithms so that the amount of money that they were generating was halved. So I was screwed. I was absolutely screwed. And I was thinking, what, I'm not having to get a job and maybe go and work in a bar or whatever. But what I found through the experience I had from Ball Street is that I was able to put everything into the Fighting Cock, and because it had my undivided attention. And that's not just the case of like, it's about fatigue as well. I don't know how, is this interesting? I'm not sure if it is, but it's about the amount of fatigue. Like when you're working in a job 9 to 5, that drains everything out of you. Like to be able to run the podcast after that, after working all day in London, then doing the podcast and running that side of your life as well was difficult. It was fatiguing, and you can't do it to the best of your ability. Once you don't have that commitment to making money for someone else, and you're just working on your own thing, that's huge. Because what you realize is that there's value in the amount of time you can put into something, not just how much money that physical money that returns. And if you've got something that is good and that people would listen to and that resonates, then all you need to do to some degree is be passionate about doing that and put time into doing that. And so that's what I was able to do. Instead of every minute getting on trains, getting on tubes, going to make content for Ball Street and doing that kind of thing, which, I love doing. Don't get me wrong. It's a great job, probably the best job I've ever had. I was able to invest it into something that I was able to build. And I keep talking about money, but money's important because it's a hobby if it's not generating income. And that's fine as well. But if you've got a family to support and a house that you want to buy or whatever it is that you might want to do, you have to find a way of earning money. Otherwise, you'll do it in your spare time and you go and work for someone else, like I was doing at Ball Street. So, yeah, and then so it just over the period of about 6-7 months, things just started clicking into gear, and more people started listening to the podcast. I was able to do more of them. Long and short, the short of answer to your question is it was terrifying. It was terrifying, and being a freelancer or working for yourself, there isn't that feeling of anxiety never leaves ever. It just becomes easier to deal with because you understand it. So I still wake up every morning on a daily basis, think about what's coming in. Have I got enough money to do what I'm planning to do? If not, where are these other opportunities going to come from? And the feeling that there is absolutely no guarantee that anything is coming is terrifying. But my experience tells me that in the last 5-6 years of doing this, something always comes up. And the reason why something always comes up, I've found, is that there is an endless stream of opportunities that generally anybody gets presented with. And I'm not saying an opportunity to earn money. I'm saying an opportunity to make something or do something or progress what you're trying to do. Or you might meet someone who offers you something that you aren't able to do. Or you might be interested in film or thumbnail design or whatever it might be. You come across someone, you think, oh, that's an opportunity I can take advantage of or help procreate something. So the freedom to be able to take advantage of opportunity it was massive, and it's that which gives me comfort when I have this anxiety about I haven't got a stable income. That said, it has been stable over the last few years. So yeah, but that freelancer anxiety is palpable.
It's really, for lack of a better word, it's quite inspiring actually, because for people like myself who want to do this full time and want to work on all these other platforms and programs and, appear on these big channels, it's really interesting to hear someone who's come from the same sort of perspective of, focusing on it part times, really draining. You've got to put yourself out there. It's interesting to listen to. And we had Dougie Critchley come on recently, and he was explaining the same sort of thing and just said it's the best thing you can do is just go for it and give it a real go. Have you got any sort of similar advice to anyone who is trying to make a career in this industry, apart from what you've already said? And just how important is it to sort of network with these other channels and other content creators?
It's important to become good at what you do. First off, if I can offer advice, it would be do what you're doing over and over again until you become so proficient in it that when you speak about Liverpool, wherever it might be, or whatever the respective clubs or interests that people are, if they listen to this, is that you become an expert in that. And that and when I say an expert, I'm not an expert at Tottenham, but I'm an expert in giving my opinion about Tottenham, which is presented in a way, I don't know what it is in terms of why people might ask me to go on their show or why you have. But what I could put it down to, what I know is true, is that I put thousands of hours into doing it, and also be aware that I didn't start doing it till I was 31. Right, I'm 42 now. So what you're able and the way your brain works is different at 42 than it would have been at 31. Or as a lot of people are starting out and leaving university, they're not. There's no. You haven't got you might have done projects or you might be building something, but you got to give it time and put work into it and become as good as you can be at what you do. So if that is talking about Liverpool and you're in competition with lots of people that want to talk about Liverpool on these shows, then you need to get to a position where you can do it as well as, or if not better. And if you can do it as well as, then it is about networking. If you can do it better, then it's about performance and taking advantage of that opportunity when you get it. But there's a fine line, right? Because like the stage we're at now, where I'm at now, is that you're getting opportunities on things like TalkSport and like the overlap and the club and whatnot, and you don't want to. The easy thing to do is to fall into a trap of saying sensational stuff because the broadcasters and these programs love it. They want clips, right? Clips of that, basically their lifeblood, because a 2-hour, 3-hour stream or a 2-hour show is worth what it's always been worth to these companies. But social clips are another a piece of value, and so Jamie O'Hara going mental on TalkSport is perfect for TalkSport because they can clip it up and send it out, right? And you know that when you go into TalkSport, if you say something mental, they're going to love it and give it more of that, and then you'll get booked and whatever. But I think I'd rather shoot myself in the face than do that. So, but just go back to your question. It's just there's nothing more to it than hard work and persistently creating. So what you're doing now, in terms of what the interview you're doing now, might be a different one that you'd conduct in 5 years or 10 years time, but because you've gone through that experience to get to that where you end up, you're able to deliver as a different product. So yeah, I mean, I didn't, to be honest, when I was doing the podcast, it wasn't, my motive wasn't, there was no I wasn't trying to be successful. I wasn't trying to do something that was going to be able to earn, like, that I could live off. I was doing it because I loved podcasting. I loved meeting up with my mates, having a beer and talking about football and talking about Spurs. And that's what drove it. It was only when I felt like I needed to make something out of it in order to move my life forward that the business aspect of it became important. And that would have been 5 years ago or so. But before that, it was just passion. It was just, we loved doing it. All of us couldn't wait to meet up at 6 o'clock on a Monday. We had a few pints in the pub. We went to the studio, stood around a mic and talked about Spurs for an hour. It helped that people were listening. It helped that, that we were one of the first to do it, way back in 2011. But even if, I genuinely think that even if people weren't listening, we would have still done it. I don't know if you've seen like Mr. Beast. He talks about you could do 100 videos and the views don't matter because you're becoming proficient and brilliant at, and I'm not saying that this is what I am, but this is what he said. You're becoming proficient and brilliant at what you do, and the experience you're getting while you're getting 50 views or 50 listens, whatever it might be, your ability on a microphone or in front of camera is increasing every single time you do it, regardless of the views. And then when you get that opportunity, you'll be in a better place than a person who just wants to do it. You're able to do it. So it's just putting the time in, I think. But it's difficult for you and for others if because when we got super lucky. So when we started the podcast in 2011, there was another pod called The Spurs Show, which was big. And there was one more, I can't remember what it was called. I think it's like Cock on Ball podcast, something like that. And they disbanded pretty quickly. And it was just us and The Spurs Show. And what we had that they didn't have was youth. So we were young. We resonated with a massive section of the Spurs support that Spurs Show didn't, because they were older. And they were moaning all the time and long in the tooth. And, as you do, as older as you get, you just want to see when you get games being won and that. But we were like, this is like Spurs is about whatever happens. It's about going to the game, belonging to a football club, and it doesn't matter win, lose, or draw. That's what it means to follow your football club. You support them no matter what. It was that kind of energy, which has changed over the years. But that's where we were at. But regardless of what we did, we would have been carried along on. The explosion in popularity, the wave of popularity, the podcasts went through. Like, they went from no one listening to podcasts while we were producing to everybody listening to podcasts. Now everybody's got a podcast. If you've got nothing to say, you have a podcast. The minute you have a minute of fame, you suddenly got a podcast because you can fix the world with everything you have to say. So we were lucky because we were doing the right thing at the right time, even though we didn't know it. So as much as I say about putting in the work, it is important to do that. We also got lucky as well, because if we hadn't started then and we're starting now, it would be very difficult to make your podcast be heard, because now there are over 100 Spurs podcasts, whereas when we started there were 2. Yeah, man, that's what I would say.
I think it's really interesting, and it's really good advice actually, just for people just to have a go of it, and it is exciting to see all these new content creators coming up. Now, you spoke about you're talking about the thing you're passionate about. I think it's time that I go on to Liverpool. It is the Liverpool video after all. I think the fans would kill me if I didn't do it. So I need to get the elephant out of the room, and I just want to get your opinion on this. You can be as honest as you want. We need to go back to the game earlier in the season, the Liverpool Tottenham game. Now,
you guys still going on about
that? No. This is the thing. I was very quick to sort of go, right, well, it's done now. Like, I was annoyed, but move on past it.
Yeah.
What was the sort of reaction to not just like the fighting cock, but to you personally from Liverpool fans regarding that game? Was there a lot of sort of abuse or?
No. I mean, no. I didn't get any abuse other than I don't remember getting. I might have done. I get a lot of. I get a lot of abuse from a lot of fans, and some of it's fine. Some of it sort of crosses the line to some degree, but in that instance, I don't think I got anything. I might have got because of probably the way I spoke about it on the pod I do with James. I might have got some heat then, but nothing. It was just, you're wrong, and and this is why you're wrong, which is not abuse, is it? It's just conversation. So look, what frustrates me about it is that there's this idea that if that decision had gone hadn't gone for Liverpool, that you would have won, which isn't the case at all. Was the first half? There was so much football to be played, and the 2 red cards had nothing to do with the offside. Although you could argue that they were angry and they react, whatever. Look, I guess there was some frustrations about the way Spurs celebrated, but we just, we scored a goal in the last minute.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you asking me? I don't know. I didn't really get any abuse. No.
Well, no, maybe abuse is the wrong word, but I meant in the sense of like, what was the sort of perception towards you with regards to the match? I mean, I know how I'm trying to phrase it, but because obviously from our perspective, we felt, the offside should have gone back, and then we heard the audio later on.
Yeah.
On what was the view from your perspective of the match, and then how did people sort of react to that response?
No, I did. Like I said, I didn't get any reaction unless you've seen something that I haven't seen. I didn't see.
No.
Okay, I didn't see anything. My reaction was that, as with all clubs, and Arsenal have been an example of this recently, is that there is only outcry when it's happening to your own football club, and there needs to be a consistent supporting of this issue, in that the referee, I don't know what it is, the referees need to improve, or VAR needs to be removed, whatever it is, when something goes for you, and that very rarely happens. And there are instances where Liverpool have benefited from VAR decisions that were incorrect, i.e. the one against Wolves, and it was shrugged and swept under the carpet. Arteta's done the same thing, and I appreciate it. I do, and I understand it. And from your own manager, you want them to do that because it benefits your club in that situation, and it creates a narrative that you could be hard done by, and you might be treated better by referees in the future. I get the kind of clandestine nature to it and why it's effective, but the outcry was like there was something unjust, like there was a corrupt element to refereeing or the Premier League that was against your football club or Arsenal's football club. And in that, it's insufferable because there isn't. There simply isn't a group of referees that are out to get Liverpool or Arsenal. It's just human error, and it has always happened in football, and it always will. And it would be better. It would be better for everyone. I'm sure most people agree. Although saw a poll the other day that 9 in 10 football fans actually want VAR to remain just for it to get better. My opinion is get rid of it altogether and just let referees make mistakes. If they make mistakes, have the conversation that we're having anyway, because it's subjective whether it's at Stockley Park or it's on the pitch. So that's my feeling about it and my reaction to it. I get it's unfair. He would definitely was onside. But it's something in football you just have to suck up, and everybody does. Like the handball in the final of the Champions League, our first ever Champions League, wasn't a handball, and it is what it is, and you kind of get on with it. I might get abuse from saying that, but I didn't really get anything. Like, I got a lot from Arsenal fans. Do you know the worst kind of abuse I got was nothing to do with anything like this. I was doing it, and I absolutely fucking hate doing these things. Sorry, I keep swearing. The combined 11s. I just hate combined 11s. They're just completely pointless. But people like doing them. There is a content there. But for me, I don't see the value, because my combined 11 with Tottenham and Arsenal would include a single Arsenal player, because the thought of even seeing them in the Spurs shirt makes me sick. But I merely suggested that there were 5 players in this Spurs team that could get in the current Arsenal one. You should see the amount of messages and the abuse that came back. And that's just an opinion about a combined 11.
Yeah, well, I remember the combined 11 you did on the club recently, and there was a lot of people saying, I think you said Moussa Dembele, and the amount of people who were so quick to just say, okay, whatever. I mean,
that's
right. It's really interesting to hear the Spurs' perspective on it. I mean, so with us this season, there's been this sense of, we're getting these late goals, we're getting these last-minute winners, which is all well and good, but we've played poor. I mean, have you noticed that?
No.
Yeah.
No, I think the understanding from us, I mean, we're looking at it going, like, well, if it's not Tottenham that are going to try and stop Arsenal from winning the league, that we're looking to Liverpool to do it. Like, I don't feel any real way about Liverpool at all. But if it's if it's a decision between Arsenal and Liverpool, then Liverpool all day, or Manchester City all day, right? Like anybody but Arsenal. I would even go as far as to say Chelsea than Arsenal. Anything but Arsenal, basically, right? So the narrative from us, what we're thinking about is that actually, no, Liverpool are quite good this season. Maybe they'll be the ones that stop Arsenal. But you're saying that might not be the case. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of our fan base that are very, look, we can do this. We are capable of winning the league. I did a podcast recently, which, just a quick plug, will be out soon. It's got one of the actors from Home Alone in it, which is really exciting. So do check that out when it comes out. So I said in it that while I do think we are in a title race, we are definitely not the favourites. And I think in actuality, given the players we've lost and the players we've brought in and the people who've had to step up, we might be overachieving in all competitions, so to speak. I mean, is that not something that's been noticed at all? Or is that something that you just sort of go, well, they're getting the last minute winners?
Yeah, no, I mean, I see a Liverpool side that had to do a lot of mending in the summer in terms of bringing players in, and a lot of you could argue that Liverpool are in transition. Most clubs are always in transition. To be honest, you're never not in transition unless you're winning, right? Everyone says, "Oh, well, now we're in transition," but you did actually literally have to rebuild your midfield, and that's off the back of Caicedo being the guy that you thought was going to be the one. As it turned out, weirdly, his comments are saying that Liverpool came in late for him, and it was Chelsea that were working on that deal for longer. But Caicedo seemed to be the one, and Lavia as well. And you didn't get those players, and so that, as I remember, when I think I spoke to Paul Machin back around, it might have been Chris, but back at that time, there was a concern because you didn't have the players. Now you rebuilt that midfield, and it's going to take time for the fluidity to become established. Not least that you've lost McAllister to injury. Gravenberch is now injured again. Like, so injuries have a massive part. You haven't had Thiago for. Has he played all this season? I can't.
No,
I don't think he probably it'll be interesting to see whether he comes back at all because of his types of injuries he's got. But it's disruptive enough when you're buying these players anyway. But for them to be dipping in and out of injury as well must be difficult in order to see the fluidity that you want to see. But you're getting the results, and that's more important. I mean, you do look at Arsenal. I think they are strong for the league this year. But if it isn't Manchester City, it's got to be Liverpool. So whatever happens, you've got to sort it out for all of our sakes.
I'd love to. We need the number 6, and like I said earlier on, I'm
not good enough.
Talking about the number 6. Endo is. I think Endo was brought in to be the backup because after we signed Endo, there was talks of other CDMs coming in. I think he was just brought in to be the James Milner role, and because we've not got the depth in that position, he's been sort of thrust into it. And he looked out of his depth against Sheffield. I don't want to imagine what he's like when he plays Tottenham. I don't want to imagine what he looks like when he plays Arsenal. He tries, but it just isn't quite good enough. Yeah. And I mean, I might be in the weird camp about that. I won't keep you too much longer, Flav. I just got 2 more. Højbjerg. I'll have Højbjerg. I need someone at this point.
Wow. Okay. I'm
desperate. It's just a quick one then. So obviously, Darwin Nunez has been the centre of attention for us this season. I just want to know what your perspective is on him, because we are sort of in the camp now where we're slowly starting to get a little bit fed up. Not to get rid of him, because we still love him, but what's your perspective of Nunez as a fan from a different club?
A lot of money was paid for him. A lot of money. And that... look, there's clearly a player there. There's clearly, a forward that you think could end up bagging 20 goals a season. He's come off, and he was a part of the rebuild in a front line that won you Champions Leagues and league titles. So there's always going to be something of a drop off. The way Salah plays, and I know there was excellent chemistry between them in parts, Salah and Nunez. It's been demonstrated, but it's a different front line from Firmino, Salah and Mane than to bring in Diaz, Nunez, and then you got Salah as well. And Jota's seems to be perpetually injured, but it's not always easy for a striker in the Premier League, the toughest league in the world, to shine. Especially when he comes with a price tag from Portugal for 70 million euros, right? So, or whatever it was. Was it more? It was probably less than that. Was it? No, it was about 70 million euros.
70, yeah.
It was. Yeah. In a team, in a team that creates chances and an expectation to creating chances as Liverpool does, he should be doing better than four goals in 16, 5 assists as well. I'm just having a look at transfer market, but. It feels like you will get there. I mean, it's not someone you can really easily replace if you've committed financially to him in that way. So, in terms of you saying people are starting to get or ask more questions of him or starting to get frustrated. The alternative is what? To bring him out of the team? You've got to persevere with him. You haven't got a choice, really. You can't have £70 million worth of striker not playing for a season, can you?
I mean, Chelsea did it with Lukaku, but that was he slagged the club off, so he didn't really have much of a choice with him, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I've got one more question then for you, and it's the one that I asked Dougie Critchley, and he couldn't come up with like a definitive answer. He named quite a few. I say to you, right, you've got one player from this Liverpool team to bring into the Tottenham squad to help further it, help develop it, or just to make it a bit more solid. Which player are you choosing for your team?
I wouldn't mind Nunez, actually. I mean, we need a number 9. Like, swap him for Højbjerg if you want. We need a number 9 if someone can play off the left. Luis Diaz, I would happily take. That would solve our left wing issue. Van Dijk, 100%. It would go into our back line. Will certainly solve the problems that we have in the centre back. Trent is amazing and will do incredible in Porro's role, but Porro's been one of our players of the season, so there'd probably be other options there. I think it's got to be either. It would be Luis Diaz. It would be.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, it would be Luis Diaz. Yeah, I think on the left hand side of midfield. Left wing, left forward. That's probably where we're weakest. It would enable us to play Son up top, through the middle, and the front line of it would either be Brendan Johnson or Kulusevski, Luis Diaz, and Son would be incredible. And bearing in mind, if you believe the story, is the reason why Luis Diaz signed for Liverpool, and they always intended to sign him, was because Spurs tried to buy him in January, and they were like, "Oh shit, we're gonna have to do this now." And I wish we had, because he's sensational. But obviously, if you're going to choose between the two clubs, you can understand why he went to Liverpool. I think it would be Luis Diaz. Is that surprising?
That is very. So I was adamant in my head it was going to be Van Dijk. I don't know. One said everyone. Got me.
Well, obviously Van Dijk is world class, but so in my head, right, Van Dijk solves the problem, but Van Dijk would play, and I'm overthinking it now, because that would mean that Romero, Van Dijk plays on the left-hand side or right-hand side of the centre back.
Left-hand side.
It would mean Van de Ven being dropped to the bench, which would, it kind of feels like that would be harsh on him. And I'm thinking, what's the weakest spot of our first 11? And it's left wing, because that's where Richarlison plays. Or if Son plays there, Richarlison has to play up front. I'm thinking that's what I would say. I mean, the sensible thing would be Van Dijk for sure, but Luis Diaz in our front three, playing the kind of football we play, he's so good on like one-on-ones and carrying the ball. I think he'd be sensational at Spurs. If you don't want him, we'll take him.
No, you can. No, we're keeping. He isn't going anywhere. So unless that idea gone, you can. You can keep Brennan Johnson. I'm on with that. Right. Everyone, that is going to wrap it up. I just want to say a huge, huge thank you again to Flav for coming onto the show. If you haven't already, please go check out The Fighting Cock. The latest episode where they talk about King Kulusevski is a really, really enjoyable listen, even if you're not a Tottenham fan. Make sure you go check out the James and Flav For Now podcast. Again, really entertaining. Was the one from yesterday just a live show, or is it?
It's not. It was just we didn't record it or anything. It was just a live show. There's another one we're recording tomorrow.
So there's going to be another episode of that out soon, so make sure you go check that out and just go support Flav in any of the content he's in. He's appeared on the club several times. I'm sure we'll see him in there a lot more. Flav, thank you very much for coming on. And everyone, please go like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you again soon for the next video.